All right, Mitch Fisher, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah. So we were just talking about how things are starting to wind down for the holidays, and so you have any special plans or anything for the holidays at all?
Well, we probably the most special thing is we try to go up to June Lake. We have a close family friend that owns a resort at June Lake and
Nice.
right on the lake, and we stay with her for a few days and trying to get a little skiing and snowboarding in with the family for a couple of days right around New Year's. It's probably the highlight for me. Beyond Christmas, we have Christmas with seems like three or four or five different sets of family. So lots of different
Mm-hmm.
Christmas events happening. But the highlight for me, the real fun is being able to get out and have a little fun with the family and be out in the outdoors. And June Lake, it's so beautiful in the winter. We're so fortunate to have some friends that have some property up there that we can hang out with.
Well, gosh, if they have a resort up there, gonna have to make a little introduction at some point, you know?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for us, it's always about getting together, hanging with the kids, and I got everything from my 3-year-old little, I'll call her niece because it's like my cousin's daughter, and I'm still trying to figure out what to call her. But she's 3 years old, and all the way to then my three youngest kids are usually there, and but they're 17, 18, and 20. And then I've got a 100-year-old aunt that
Oh,
comes
wow.
over, and she spends as much time as she can. And at some point, she looks up and she goes, "I'm ready." I said, "Okay, all right, I'm ready to take you home." So it works out. It's very nice. So you and I, you're with Blue and Associates. You and I are just getting to know each other recently. I've been seeing you
Mhm.
more and more at some of these network meetings that we're getting, and I can see you're really getting traction. You're getting a lot of respect there. Can you give us an idea of what you do from the standpoint, like at the sweet spot for you, or maybe even something you're currently working on, that kind of thing?
Sure. Very specialized in due diligence for commercial real estate transactions.
Mm-hmm.
Find what I do is very lender driven. Usually, things we investigate things that might potentially cause a borrower to default. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the biggest product that I sell, or what I would say maybe I sell the most of, are ALTA surveys or land title surveys.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, those are often requested by lenders on a commercial real estate transaction, or it's really the type of title insurance. They want an extended title insurance policy. They want the survey exception removed from their title insurance policy. And so that
Mm-hmm.
triggers the need for an ALTA survey. The title companies will not do that work themselves. They want a third party to do it. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, they will refer the client to someone like myself. And my company, we're nationwide. We have over 100 field crews and about 40 different licensed surveyors on staff and a huge staff
Oh,
of
great.
people to prepare the surveys. So ALTA surveys are a very big one that I work on. Goes hand in hand with an ALTA survey is a zoning report. The
Mm-hmm.
zoning report, I call it like the burger and fries. Zoning report is it's a report specifically prepared to determine if, as the property sits today, is it currently compliant with current code? Are there any code violations, fire code violations? We
Mm-hmm.
check for things like variances, certificate of occupancy, right to rebuild provision. Is the parking correct? Are you any setback violations, height violations? So Alta survey and zoning go together quite a bit. Uh, Another thing that I saw quite a few of are environmental site assessments. Phase ones are what
Mm-hmm.
we typically start with. Phase one is a physical inspection of the property and historical records inspection to determine if there is the potential for any groundwater or soil contamination on the site.
Mm-hmm.
In America, the current owner, is responsible for any environmental liability. So, Scott, say you go and buy a warehouse and you don't do a phase one, and afterwards it's determined that the property is contaminated. You, as the new owner, are now financially liable to clean up that site, even though you may have had nothing to do with polluting it ever historically. So many lenders do not want to lend on a contaminated site because the potential expense to clean it up could be pretty significant.
Right.
Right, you buy it, you find out that it's going to cost $1 million to clean it up. You say, well, forget this property. I'm just going to leave it. You stop paying your mortgage. The bank forecloses, and now they own a contaminated property. That's one of the last things that they want. So commercial lenders will 99% of the time request that the buyer obtain a new phase one. Beyond that, if there is the potential for contamination, we do phase twos, which is a more comprehensive investigation where we'll actually go out and with drilling equipment and drill and get some core samples and go much deeper. And to the next step, which is full remediation, which in certain circumstances, my company can handle the full remediation of the property to get it to where you get what's called a no further action letter from different government agencies, which basically is the government's way of saying it's cleaned to our satisfaction. So, and then the third kind of the package, or the fourth, I guess it is the property condition assessment. And the property condition assessment is, I equate it to like a home inspection, but for commercial real estate. So we send out an architect or a contractor, an engineer, to do an investigation of the property, visual inspection to determine what type of deferred maintenance might be in place. It was a long list of about 60 different items on the property that we will check into, and we will tell you this needs immediate attention, right? Within 90 days, this needs to be fixed because it's not working right now. Here's a budget of what that might cost. Here's like a 2 to 3 year timeline. Here's what it might cost to fix or repair this in the next 2 or 3 years. And here's long-term capital expenditures, things like roofs maybe or parking lots, where you might want to set aside reserves every month to pay for some very large expenses like a roof. Could be, 50 to many hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the size of the property, or parking lots or HVAC systems. Or so many of my clients will order kind of that whole due diligence package from me all together: survey and zoning, phase one, and property condition assessment. And they have everything they need to get a good understanding of what's physically going on at the property. Their lenders want to see that information. If they're a syndicator, which many of my clients are, they are satisfying their fiduciary responsibility to their clients to handle these types of investigations, and again, make sure that there are no surprises or things that might come up that might cause them to ultimately default on the property.
So I have a question. First off, this is I don't know a lot about commercial. I'm mostly residential, as you know. But to know that you guys are doing they're not the same kind of reports, but you're protecting your client just like we do with all the myriad of inspections. So we run into crap all the time. So do you have any story or anything that you found that you go, oh my God, thank God we did this report, because you would have been in hell if you bought this property without it?
The surveys, we've seen situations in surveys with the ALTA survey. So the ALTA survey, I like to say it is a way to confirm that your title report and all the information in title is correct. So we go physically inspect the property. We need the title report. We need the legal description as provided in title. And many times a property can consist of multiple parcels, right? So we need to know what all of those parcels are to include those on the survey. And a famous one, or infamous one that I always tell as a horror story, was we thought we had all of the parcel numbers, right? The purchase and sale contract had been signed by both the buyer and seller. It listed all of these different APNs. Title had done their research. Even we always try to make sure that we include all of the parcels. Someone might give us an address and say, Mitch, it's 123 Main Street, and then we pull up 123 Main Street, and we might find out there's 5 different APNs affiliated with that one street address. So we want to make sure that we have all of the parcel numbers. So I believe it was like a fast food restaurant. And even though it was a small site, there were multiple APNs associated with the site. And when we went and we surveyed it, there was a strip, maybe only 5 feet wide, the width of the driveway, that was a separate parcel that nobody really knew who it belonged to. And it was not included in the transaction, but it could have prevented access to the property because it was somebody else's real estate blocking the driveway into the property. And so without us actually surveying the property and doing the math and saying, wait a minute, there's space here that's unaccounted for. Who owns this space, right? The likelihood that something would have come from that is maybe low, but again, the potential for a nightmare type of a situation was there, where the owner could have come along and said, "Wait, hey, I'm building a wall across your driveway unless you pay me," the potential to hijack or blackmail somebody who was there.
Why don't anyone who's going to spend any amount of money on a commercial property, why wouldn't they all do these things? Because it just seems like really foolish not to.
Right. You would be amazed how cheap some people can be. When they're spending millions of dollars. It's very uncommon that, $1 million in commercial is a small transaction size these days. Right. We're working on transactions that could be in the tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars. So yeah, I agree. It's foolish not to do this work. But people will kick and scream. They will try to negotiate with us. They'll try to grind us down on our prices. And I get it. It's the nature of the business. People are very entrepreneurial. They're always trying to get a better deal. But yeah, buyer beware is what I like to say, right? So do it or don't do it at your own peril, right? If you don't do it, then don't be surprised if a situation comes along down the road that's gonna bite you because you didn't do the necessary homework. Do your due diligence, right? In my experience, people are coming to me because they want to have the work done. Or again, you're not going to get your loan because many times this work is being requested by the lender, right? Because ultimately, again, it's the lender who is putting up a substantial amount of risk. They're putting up a significant amount of the money of the purchase price of the property, and they're the group that stands to own the property ultimately if it comes down to foreclosure. Many times, again, it's the lender saying you need to order an ALTA survey and a zoning report and a phase 1 and a property condition assessment, or we're not going to finance real estate. So.
Yeah, I've seen it happen in residential, but I have to imagine it happens so much more in commercial as well. Usually in residential, it's about a couple of inches, and the things that they fight about is absolutely ridiculous. What's the worst environmental issue that you've ever had to deal with?
Well, the ones that seem to there have been just situations where there was really almost impossible to clean up the property because it was so contaminated. The costs were so excessive. Probably the worst situations, though, for a buyer are when it's one of your neighbors has contaminated your property, right? Because groundwater flows, so the contamination can flow. So if you're downstream of someone who is contaminating the property, we see this a lot it's dry cleaners are one of the biggest culprits. Gas stations, mechanics, plating facilities, junkyards, anywhere where chemicals could have been, introduced to the soil, to the bare soil. So yeah, I've had people who wanted to sell their building, and a block away was a dry cleaner, and they really couldn't sell because the dry cleaner 50 years ago was just dumping the chemicals. Or I've heard stories of, the chemicals were so bad and so toxic that it would just eat through the concrete, right? So even if it
Right.
was just spilling on the floor of your building, over enough time, it would just go through the concrete and into the ground. So there have been some sad situations where people needed to sell their property for whatever reason, and the contamination was preventing them from being able to sell. Yeah. So trying to think of some bad ones.
Yeah.
It's
Well, if
we
you don't
see it a
have one in
lot.
particular, I mean, whatever you want to share. This is all about just hearing stories, and it could be something where um, it seemed terrible, but then you came in and saved the day. Whatever you want to share.
In all honesty, I'm all the surveys and zoning are what I've done for about the last 10 years.
Hmm.
I'm new to Blue, only starting at Blue in May of this year.
Hmm.
So selling the environmental and the property condition assessments is
Hmm.
a new service for me personally.
Uh
So
huh.
to be 100% honest, I don't have a tremendous amount of experience in those yet. So I haven't been able to come across a lot of horror stories yet, but I have already seen a few. I have already seen a few situations. Um, and again, with the property condition assessments, also just some of the deferred maintenance issues that come up, things like roofs,
Hmm.
uh, right, where oh, it's $100,000 to fix this roof, right? And then the seller says, nope, sorry, I told you it's an as-is transaction. So things like that could potentially kill deals, and
Hmm.
we don't want to be the reason that a deal is terminated. But again,
Right.
you would rather know up front, right, that you don't want to buy the property and then the first time it rains, it's leaking like a sieve, and you didn't know because you didn't check. Um, so yeah, I would rather the buyer know about these situations and make the educated
Sure.
decision. Maybe this isn't the property for me, or it's not the deal for me, because of something that we came up with or that we turned over. So,
No, I
um,
hear you. I've had that happen many times. What we oftentimes do in residential is almost always, do a termite report, and we almost always do a sewer line. And
mhm.
then sometimes, if the HVAC looks older, we have a guy check it out and certify it, or let us know, because that way we can go into escrow. We can, before we even accept an offer, we can say roof is 28 years old. It has approximately 5 years of life, but you're going to have to verify. HVAC is still running. However, this.
Mhm.
Here's the camera, the video for the sewer line. It's not in
Right.
perfect condition. It's not new, but it's in good and reasonable condition. Here's the video. Here's the report. That way, by the time we present all this, people look at it, and when they get into escrow, if they bring something up, we just say move on to the next subject. We already talked about that. That's already factored into the price. And so, but
Yes.
it really helps because the one that we're doing right now, they ended up asking for a $2,500 credit, and it's an older house. But it would have been 40 or 50 if we didn't do these other reports. And so 2,500 is like really palatable. It doesn't kill a deal. 40 or 50 oftentimes will. And so
Yeah.
that's what we do too.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, remember what I told you when we first started? I said it was going to be really quick and easy. That's
Sure.
what just happened. That's how quick and
Okay.
easy it is.